Well, hello and welcome to Transform Tuesday. My name is Dave McCormick. I'm VP of Product Management here at Alpha, and I'm here to talk to you a bit about Alpha Transform. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and I have a little bit of a presentation which I'd like to go over today. Let's pop over to my PowerPoint. And there we go. Hey, before we get started, could someone in the questions box let me know whether or not you can see my screen and whether or not I am coming through loud and clear? Hey, okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, so as I've been putting together the Alpha Anywhere User's Guide, I've been coming across features that I realized hadn't gotten enough attention. These are features that had been there since the very beginning of Alpha Transform, or almost the very beginning of Transform. But we just hadn't documented or really talked about them that much. And they are features that are particularly useful for dispatch types of operations, or say field service types of operations, which is sort of a common use case anyway for Transform. So some things that I wanted to talk about that sort of play into this use case for doing field dispatch and field research are the ability to, first of all, sort forms in the Transform app, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But then the other thing is the ability to add comments into the application so that you can communicate with people who are out in the field. Another feature has to do with the submit buttons, which we often don't talk a lot about here. Usually we just rely on hitting done at the top of the page and then upload, or using the rather simple submit buttons that come in the quick start input portion of Transform. But there's more that you can do if you're dealing with buttons in the form commands window, and I want to show you about that. And one of them actually is the ability to remove a form from Transform when it's been submit, so that the person in the field only has forms that they need to deal with, and also so that data isn't being stored on the form that could potentially leak or take up too much space that doesn't need to be there. And then the last thing or related thing is just talking about how you can change role assignments in the management console and why you would do that. So let me just go ahead and we're going to take our example from start to finish. And if you have any questions, of course, you can go ahead and type those questions into the questions box. So I'm going to head over here into Transform. And in Transform, I've built a really, really simple form. I think 4 fields and a button, called building census. So imagine the worker's job in this scenario is to go into a building, knock on doors and just say, oh, okay, this is apartment 1, who lives here, or who's the person who's renting or owner who owns the apartment, and how many occupants are in there. So it's sort of a really simple use case. So the way the form has been structured is the apartment number we've actually done as a numeric field. First name, last name are as text fields here. Number of occupants is a number field. We have some error checking built in so that if the number of occupants is above 19, which is actually a rather generous number, let's set that to like 8. You'll get an error, and the error will tell you that in fact you need to that you've probably entered a number that's too high. So let's say this is between 0 and 8. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. We'll push that up, and we'll take a look at this form on my phone. So let me open my phone. I'm going to turn on screen mirroring. And there we go. Okay, so here I am in the Transform app, and I'm on the existing forms, which is not where I need to be. I'm going to go to Add Form, and I'm going to say Refresh Form Definitions. Okay. And there's Building Census right here, so I'm going to tap on Building Census. And I've created a new instance of that form type. And I'm going to enter in an apartment number. So let's say it's going to be apartment number 11. Well, notice I've typed 111 by accident. We didn't have smarts in the app to pick it up, but I made this mistake on purpose, and you'll see in a moment why. So let's say the owner there is David. Let's say Smith. And just to test to see if we've made our error checking right, I'm going to put in 80 occupants. It's going to say, nope, you need to enter a number between 0 and 8. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. I'm going to make that 6 occupants. Okay, So now I am all done with this form, and I'm going to click the Close and Upload Form button. So I'm going to close. It's going to ask me, do I just want to upload this form, or if there are any other forms that haven't been uploaded, do I want to upload those at this time as well? I'm going to say Upload All. And it's been uploaded to the server. And now you can see I'm back here at the existing Forms tab. And if I scroll down to the bottom, there's my building census form. Now, the existing forms list, remember, is a list of all of the forms that were downloaded to your phone since the last time you hit the refresh button. By adding a form, we actually added to this existing forms list. So building census is here. Now let's say, though, that I couldn't easily find, so let me show you one other feature here. Let's say I couldn't easily find building census in this list. I do have a lot of junk in here. This is another one of these features that's been overlooked, I think, and that is that A to Z sort button up here at the top. And with that, you can actually decide how you want to have the forms listed. So you could list them by status, for example. Show me all the open ones first, and then all the closed ones below that. I don't know if I have a lot of closed ones. Yeah, I've got a few, or submitted ones down there. I could sort it by date. So the one I just did would be at the very, very bottom, like it is. I could do it by form type, and this is a pretty useful one if you have multiple form types. So this is one that I use a lot because I've got a lot of form types. And in this case, you'll find that that building form is between my Boilerminder form and my building tracker form. There's building census. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, though, is I'm going to go ahead and click that refresh button in existing forms and watch what happens to my building census form. Loading, and there's Boilerminder, there's building tracker, but no building census. It's disappeared off of my device, and that's because it was set up to do that. After I've submitted a form and I hit refresh, that form was set up to disappear from my device so it wouldn't clutter up my device or can keep data on my device that I didn't need. So the question is, how do you do that? And I'm going to show you how we did that right now. I'm going to move my phone window here out of the way, and we're going to go over to building census form. And you'll see that I have a button here called Change Status. Now, this is sort of an interesting thing in which we're not being completely consistent between our two views, between our input quick start text view and our form commands view. Let me show you what I mean by that. When you first build a form, typically you use the quick start input style here, where you type in your field name, and then later on, let's say the field name was first name, and then you could just leave that as a text, and you could say age, and you could make that a number, like we've done here. And among the options that you have in Quick Reference is submit. So you have submit, and you have this submit form and change its status. So if I can choose that, I can just add that button, and there's my submit. Now, typically, I'm going to cancel that. When you add a new control in this form commands view, there is a one-to-one correlation between the ones that you saw in Quick Start input to the ones that are found here in the form commands view. In fact, there should be extra ones here. But if you look through this list, you could look all day, you are not going to find a submit button. Instead, the submit button, when you're in the form commands view, is actually called change status. So when I put the change status in, and that can be used as a submit button. So once I put change status in, let me cancel out of that view, you'll see I have some choices here in form commands. One thing I can do is when the button is clicked, I can change it to a different status. In this case, I'm going to make it submitted. When the button is clicked using one of these change status forms, it will also automatically prompt you to upload the form to the server. Now, in the case where the form is not going to be uploaded or doesn't need to be uploaded, you're just making maybe a status change, what you're going to do instead is type in something into the status change message if you want it to say something other than close and upload form. So close and upload form is the default for when it's going to do both. But if you want to change the message for that, you can change that here. On the other hand, if you just need to upload it because you haven't changed the status, you can change. This would say upload form otherwise, and you can change the default message that'll appear on that button in that case right here. So there's just a couple things you can change. Now, what you'll notice here is this is the key one for making the form disappear off of the phone. It's the control that's called change form instance so that it will not download to filler. As you probably know, filler is sort of our fancy term for the TransForm app. We call it the TransForm filler application is sort of its long name. So by checking this box, what that means is once I close this form and once I submit it, the next time I refresh the list, I want that form to disappear. And so that's what we've done in this case. So now I filled in that form just a moment ago, and I'm going to go over to Management Console, because even though the form has disappeared off my phone, it still exists, and I can still get to it from the Management Console. So I'm going to go over to Management Console. I'm going to choose the type of form. Here's my building census form. And I have a couple of instances, one I did just before this webinar started, and one I did after. So here is the one that I just submitted. And you'll see over here on the right, or sorry, over here in the middle, here's the data I entered, the apartment 111. Here's the name, and here's the number of occupants. You'll see now it's also set to prevent form filler from downloading. This has already been set to yes, and that's because we had set up the button to make that change. In other words, this is the setting that you use to make the form disappear off the phone after you've submitted it and refreshed. The next thing we're going to do is, now let's say, for example, we looked at this as the administrator and we said, wait a minute, that's crazy. Apartment 111, no, that's no good. I want to send this form back with a comment to the person out in the field. So we can do that by going into comments and saying plus to add a comment, and we could say, please check. There should not be an apartment number 111. So I'm going to click save. And now I'm going to come over here and say, no, I don't want it prevented from going to the filler. I want it to go to the filler. So in other words, I want this form to go back onto the person's device. So I've clicked no. And I want to change the status to open so that we can make edits on that form and they can fix the problem. So I've made those three things. I've added a comment. I've told it that I want that form to go back to the TransForm app, and I've changed the status back to open so that the person in the field will see the ticket and can make changes. So I'm going to go ahead now and click to save changes. And then I'll push the updates that I've made here in Management Console up to the TransForm Cloud. And now let's bring my phone back. Oh, looks like Sarah has joined us. Let me go ahead and make her an administrator. Hold on just one moment. There we go. Excellent. Hello, welcome, Sarah. Are you there?
I am here.
Excellent. All right, so good. I'll have you here on backup in case I say something wrong or unusually wrong. Anyway, okay. I'm going to go ahead and put you back on mute. So here we are on my phone, and I'm going to refresh my existing forms. And what we should see is that after boiler reminder, our building census form has now returned back to our device. So now I can click on it. And then I could say, okay, why is this back on my device? So I can go up to the hamburger menu and I can look at the comments. And it says, please check there should not be an apartment number 111. So I can say, oh, yeah, that's my mistake. That should have been apartment 11. So I'm going to change that to 11. Done. I'm going to close and upload the form. Again, I can upload all the instances or just the one. Doesn't make any difference. And then it's still here in existing forms, but as soon as I hit refresh, it's going to be gone. And so let me move my phone back out of the way. And I'm going to refresh over here. Oops, there we go. And I noticed it was last changed at 1:14. It's now 1:15, so that was just a minute ago. And you'll see that it's been set to apartment 11. I've made the change. So, and it's already been set to submitted again. At this point, it depends on the process, but you might add another comment saying, yes, this data looks okay. You might leave it alone. It would be up to you. So I just wanted to show you basically these sets of features, this set of being able to group your forms, the ability to add a button. So group your forms in here. And here's another way of looking at it, by the way. It's fun to play with these controls. So that you can find forms that you're looking for. You can, in the form designer, let's pop back there, you can set up your submit buttons so that when the device is refreshed, a submitted form can disappear and no longer clutter up a device. And in Management Console, you can actually undo that by clicking no and having the form go back onto the device, as well as change the status so that it's open instead of submitted so that the person can edit it on their sides, and also add in a comment so that the person in the field perhaps can see why the form showed back up on their device. So I hope this use case and demonstration sort of accommodation of features was useful, and now I'm here to take any questions. One question is there a way to force the form to go back only to this technician? Yes, there is. It has to do with the user ID. Let's say, for example, Dave entered in apartment 111, and the supervisor was like, all right, forget it, Dave. This is the last time I'm letting you do it. I'm going to reopen this ticket, but I'm not going to give it to Dave. I'm going to give it to a different tech. All I would do is enter in the name of the person. Like, let's say it was Sarah that we were sending it to. I can enter in Sarah's name, click Save Changes, and then when Sarah opens up her device, she'll see it and Dave won't. Is it possible to embed the comment in the listing template? That's a great question. I'm not exactly sure, but we'll find out. That would actually be really super helpful if we could. I will take a look at that. Because you might be able to then at the glance, right on your existing forms tab, say, why is this bad? Like bad apartment number or something like that on the front. Let's see what else. Is the form definition for Boilerminder available? It is available. Just send me an email to tfservice@alphasoftware.com. I'll be happy to send you the raw JSON for that one. Keep in mind, it relies on a lot of backend services that aren't in place. So some of it is sort of demo where you'd have to hook in your own APIs and stuff. But if you want to see how it's put together, by all means, just send us an email and we'll be happy to send it back to you. Is there a way to assign a form to multiple people but have it disappear when submitted so there will not be duplicates? For example, shift workers. Right. So the idea of doing that and pooling, and for that matter, pooling tickets. So, you could assign it to or you could assign it to 4 people, but whoever grabs that ticket first, it's their ticket. That is a concept that we're working on. I believe it's possible to do with a little bit of, programming with the API in the back end, but it's something that we'd like to make work right out of the box with Alpha TransForm. So shift workers are one, and teams are another one. So that is something we're working on, but right now you can't do it just out of the box with TransForm. You do need to do a little bit of coding. All right. Well, if that's it for questions, then I want to thank all of you for showing up. I very much appreciate it. If you do have any future questions, go ahead and type them into tfguides@alphasoftware.com. If you need a free sandbox license, send an email to tfguides@alphasoftware.com. Thank you again. Take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.